Okay, so you are desperately in love with a borderline who has discarded you, and they have discarded you for somebody else. Now, maybe they dumped you and immediately went to somebody else. Maybe they were cheating on you with somebody else and then dumped you and moved in with that person, or kicked you out of the house and had them come live. Some of the stories I've heard have just been horrific. You've been married for 10 years, and the next thing you know, overnight, they are moving in with somebody else. And seemingly just, no comprehension of what has happened and what they have done. But that's an extreme. Maybe it wasn't as extreme with you, but in any case, you've been discarded and now they're with somebody else. And you are devastated. You have given so much of yourself. You've been through hell and back trying to meet their needs and make them happy and to heal them. And you've done everything more than humanly possible. And it still wasn't enough to get them to stay and to love you back. And so now you are tortured because you hear about it, or you know about it, or they're flaunting it in front of you perhaps, or they're on social media, and you see it everywhere you go. You see them with somebody else and they're happy, and it's amazing, and it's not you. They're happy with somebody else, and it just tears you up inside. And so you're wondering, what could you have done differently? Why, and you know that when you were together with them, that they were very screwed up. They had all kinds of major problems. They were broken, and now there was somebody else. All of a sudden they're fixed. And so in your mind, that other person has that thing that they needed that you couldn't give to them. And it's tearing you up inside, that there's something wrong with you, and they're okay now, and they're happy now, and it's just killing you. Right? So does that sound rational? Does that sound reasonable? You saw how screwed up they were, and you saw how damaged they were. You saw how incapable they were of functioning, depending on where on the spectrum they are with borderline, because borderline is a spectrum. If your experience was like mine, when I first met her, she was so put together and so smart and so spiritual and so successful. And she had her own business, and she was doing really well, and she was really independent, and she was really healthy, and she was really, just all these wonderful things. And then, after I got pulled in and got attached, then the truth started coming out. Not only did she not have her own business, she was living off of the government because she had depression. And so she was getting paid monthly to just survive. Oh, she didn't have a business after all, even though she had a website and everything else and told people she had a business. She didn't have a business. And even though she was this really healthy person, oh no, she was actually still on medication for being a drug addict. So she's not all that healthy. And now she doesn't bathe all that much. And she doesn't brush her teeth all that much. And her fingernails are really big and long and dirty. And then she's got these other problems, and then she's been sexually abused. So the problems just, it went from being this perfect person to somebody with a lot of serious issues, and then the splitting happened, and the depression, and the next thing you know, I'm pulled into this whole crazy mess of, how did I get here? And I'm so in love with her, and how do I get away? Maybe you had a similar experience. And so that's what happened with you. You met the perfect person who loved you more than anybody, and then as time went on, you got pulled into this roller coaster of hell. And but you're so in love, you're going to fix them, you're going to heal them, and you're going to get them back to that place where they were when they were love bombing you in the beginning, and you're going to get that back. And if you could just get them to love you like that, it would all be okay. And then, of course, everything is your fault, and you're the worst person that's ever existed, so they dump you and they move on to somebody else, and they're happy. And now you believe that that was you that was wrong, and it tears you up to think that you're not the one who gets to be the person, their special person, and now somebody else is their special person, and you have no meaning. You've been discarded, and they don't even remember you. You're nothing. And you know now that they're talking about you the same way that they talk to you about their other exes. And this is killing you inside. And so you wonder, why is it that they're so happy with that other person and not with you? Well, the reality is that they're not. Best case scenario, they are in the idealization phase, which, as you know, can last for a while in the beginning. And you're seeing that. But the reality is that if they were that dysfunctional with you, and that broken with you, and that unhappy and that crazy, guess what's going to happen? They're going to do that to that person also. It may take a little while, but that's what's going to happen, because they're not going to magically get better. You know, a mental disease doesn't work like that. You just don't wake up one day and magically you're better. Especially if your mental disease has a strong connection to dysfunctional relationships. You're not going to magically find that one person that's going to fix your dysfunction. So that is your pain and your fear. It's not a reality. And it's really important for you to go get some help. Go get some therapy. I recommend Codependence Anonymous, work the 12 steps. So you can have some real understanding and look back with real, 20/20 vision and see what was really going on. And then you'll see that they didn't magically get better because they met the right person. That they took that same dysfunction into that relationship. And maybe, the person that you're with, you were with them for years perhaps. It might take years, but it's guaranteed they will end up in the same place. And that person will be the person who's being unfortunately abused by the tragic disease that borderline personality disorder is. So that's your delusion. That's your self-hatred and your self-rejection. That's you're projecting onto them your issues. And you can be quite certain that however dysfunctional and imperfect your relationship was, it is also going to be that way with whoever they're with now. And that person will, when that person has been used up, they will be tossed aside, and they will find somebody else. So my suggestion is to, as I said, get some therapy and work the 12 steps, and to understand why you got involved with the borderline to begin with, and to take responsibility for your end. And it's sad because I see a lot of people who don't recover from the trauma of being with a borderline. I'm lucky. I had a lot of stuff going into it. I had been in therapy for a long time. I'd been in 12-step group for a long time. I'd never been with a borderline, so I didn't know what to, I didn't have the ability to see it coming. So, we make mistakes. I stepped into a trap and I got stuck in it. Thankfully, she discarded me fairly quickly because I had set down some boundaries, and I was in a heck of a lot of pain, which is why I created this channel. But If you go back in time and you see the first videos that I made, you can see how much pain I'm in. In fact, I didn't even, the ones where I'm weeping, I'm like weeping and crying. I mean, I was going to put those on. I never put those on the channel, but I did the work. I talked to my therapist and I got together with my people and I did my 12-step work, especially that inventory. And the recovery was very quick. It didn't feel like I was going to recover very quickly. I was in a lot of pain, but it actually came very quickly. But that's because I had a lot of tools. If you don't have the tools, you may be in a lot of pain, perhaps for the rest of your life. I mean, the damage that a borderline can do can be permanent. I mean, and I don't say that lightly, because most relationships usually aren't that permanent. But the damage that a borderline can do to your self-esteem and to your ability of knowing who you are and just enjoying life is really quite amazing. The damage they can do. So I do recommend, like when you're mortally wounded, you're out on the battlefield and you get mortally wounded, sitting there bleeding out, you're not going to magically get better. You're going to need to go and go to the field hospital and get operated on and get sutured up. So when it comes to coming out of a relationship with a borderline, you're going to have to get help, and I recommend that you do that. Otherwise, as I said, I've seen it. I know what happened with me, and I know the difference between what happened before and after I did the work. And I've seen what's happened to people who stayed with borderlines for long periods of time, and I've seen the wounds and the damage on multiple levels. Not just their emotional well-being, but their physical well-being had been seriously, sometimes irreversible damage. So get some help, get yourself fixed, and you can't do it alone, okay? And there is life after breaking up with a borderline. It does exist. If you're a borderline, this isn't meant to say mean things to you. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a borderline. I can only guess at what it's like to have what you go through, and I do know that what you go through is horrible and painful, and I don't wish that on you or anybody else. So if you are borderline, I recommend you get into therapy with a therapist who is qualified to help people with borderline personality disorder, so you can learn how to have a loving relationship also. You deserve love, you deserve happiness. But this is a horrible disease, and it's horrible to everybody involved. Everybody's a victim. Nobody comes out of this without being damaged. So that's it. Your borderline is not happy now just because they dumped you. They're still the same person, and they're still dealing with the same pain. And you can not take it personally. It's not your fault. All right, that's it. Thanks.